Good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time to join us for this webinar associated with cyberbullying and letting you know that the kids are all right. So I am Scott Hudson. I'm the Senior Vice President at Aura Identity Guard. And we're really excited to bring this informational webinar to you because with all of us obviously working from home, and I apologize if my dogs bark in the background because I'm one of those that's working from home. But obviously, it creates new opportunities and new stress on all of us. And so, one of the challenges is all of our kids are at home. They're no longer in the classroom, and they have a lot of free time. And that means that they're going to spend a lot more time on their phone, and they're going to spend a significant amount of time on various forms of social media. And unfortunately, something has evolved around cyberbullying, and we thought it would be informative and informational to bring to you two folks that can provide some insight to that. First, we have Tina Meier, who is the founder and executive director for the Megan Meier Foundation, which cause and focus is all about cyberbullying, and she will share some incredible insights and some very personal stories. And then we also have Jeanne Gray, who is our chief people officer at Aura, and we thought it'd be important to bring both the expert but also the practitioner from an HR point of view to talk about what companies can do to help their employees and educate their employees about this very important topic. So we're very excited to bring it to you. Feel free to ask questions, and we'll monitor those and we'll ask them where we can. And I'm going to just remind everyone, if anybody is interested in making a donation to the foundation, you can visit the website, and Tina will share details on that. So with that, I'm happy to turn things over to Tina, and she can walk us through this important topic. So Tina, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me here. Um, One thing I always start my presentations out with is explaining to people when we're talking about these issues of cyberbullying, it can be scary. And sometimes when people hear my story, there's always that concern of we always think that it's going to be our children. And what I want to make sure people understand is that I share my daughter's story for an educational purpose. These presentations are never ever intended to be scary or threatening. If your child is online, this is what's going to happen. That's absolutely not the case. I do this because the more that we as parents understand what our children are doing online while they're with us or away from us, the better that we can be to be able to help them through situations that may come up. Um, Again, I started the Megan Meier Foundation um, strictly because of wanting to make sure that we're helping other people. But one thing I always want to let people know is that I am not a licensed therapist and I don't provide legal advice. Everything that I have gained has been from the past 12 years of traveling around the country and speaking to children in public and private and suburban and rural and inner city schools, talking to them about what they're going through, talking to parents about their concerns and what they're seeing, and then talking to educators about what they're seeing with kids within schools. And these are all of the things that I bring forward as a parent, as an executive director, to be able to help other parents. One of the things I always try to start with is my daughter's story, Megan. You know, I was a mom who was a real estate agent who had two beautiful girls, and life was going the way that I thought it should, with typical ups and downs. But my kid Megan was the girl that did struggle with self-worth, self-esteem. She was bullied throughout the years. And Megan in seventh grade and going into her eighth grade year asked to have a MySpace account, which is very much like the TikToks and the Snapchats and the Instagrams of today's world. I was always a concerned parent and worried about sexual predators and many different things, so I put a lot of restrictions in place. To kind of fast forward, Megan on October 16th of 2006, Megan took her own life. She was actually an adult neighbor, pretended to be a boy on MySpace, and created this hoax, and my daughter took her own life. The story goes pretty deep, and there's a lot surrounding it, and you can absolutely go to our website to be able to read more on Megan's story and kind of how all of that transpired. But today, my focus, I really want to focus on the issues of cyberbullying and what are things to look for. Um, as a parent, I think that we all are trying to do our best. We're trying to go to work and feed our children and pay our bills and live our lives. And when this technology happens, no matter how much we think we have a hold on it with maybe parental controls or different things, we sometimes have to realize that I think what I failed was sometimes the just sitting down, the conversations, the discussions, I think are things that are really important. And with Megan, one of the things I was always trying to be that protective mom. So it was a thing of you do as I say, you don't do as I do. I put a lot of controls on thinking that maybe that was what was going to be the thing that would protect her. Um, One of the things I've always been very clear on is this adult neighbor that pretended to be a boy on MySpace. We've all heard about people who catfish and people who create fake accounts to make fun of another kid or not get caught. This is the same situation. Um, Many times, the people that create these fake accounts, like this mom that created the fake account against Megan, I know that they did not think my daughter was going to take her own life. I know that many times people do it for many different reasons. It doesn't make sense to a lot of us, but they do it, not with the intent that the person is going to harm themselves. But I always explain to people that this is the reality, though. These are the things that can happen when we get online and we now create fake accounts to talk about somebody, to share things about people, to, blast them to other people. We have no clue when that other person is looking at their phone, their device, where they're at, what's going on, what's happening in their home life. And when they walk away from that screen, they don't just get to walk away from it. They take everything that is being said and they take that internally. And these are the tragedies that can happen. When I started my foundation, it was strictly to tell Megan's story. And I didn't really know much more other than that. And I have realized throughout the years that when I share her story, that I am now able to get to the other side. Sometimes we have a wall of, yes, we've heard these stories. Yes, we know about cyber safety. Yes, we know about all of these things. But sometimes when you hear it first person and you think about what is happening in your life, you're able to kind of take that wall down. And now I can usually talk to parents and educators and kids about, okay, so what is going on? And here are some things that kids are saying and what they're doing. Here's maybe a better way to be able to approach the situations that are happening. And that's really where Megan's story kind of pushed me into the foundation, which is our mission is to support and inspire actions to end bullying, cyberbullying, and suicide. To date, again, we have traveled across the country, but one consistent thing that always is really what cyberbullying itself is, okay? So if you're saying, what is cyberbullying? This can be used on any device. It is a willful and repeated harm that's inflicted through the use of computers and cell phones and other electronic devices to harass, threaten, humiliate others. One thing to understand is that even though somebody says something about your child one time and it may not be considered cyberbullying, it still is going to be hurtful. It could still be embarrassing. That message still can go to 20 or 30 different kids. But the thing is that cyberbullying, it has to be repeated to be able to show that that person is on purpose targeting your child and repeatedly doing this. But I want to make sure and stress the fact of if your child has been called names or left out, that the feelings that they're feeling are still real, even though it's not repeated. Cyberbullying is different because from traditional bullying, because it is anonymous many times. It is 24 hours a day. It's everywhere. And the reality is that children feel that even if somebody is saying something rude or hurtful to them and they're texting it to them or it's in a group chat, maybe realistically there's only 5 people that are within that group chat. But to them, they feel like it has gone viral. They feel like everybody is going to know about what was being talked about. If somebody talks about the fact that they like a boy or a girl and they bring it out in group chat or on social media, they feel like now everybody at the school is going to know. And that's where it kind of, from traditional bullying, where it's the people that are right around, that cyberbullying piece, it makes it feel like it is so much larger. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. Where do we think cyberbullying takes place? Well, it takes place any place that is electronic. Even these children's games, it does not matter if it's Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, we have TikTok, and we have, I mean, you can list thousands and thousands of these apps out there. It's not always those providers that provide these apps. It's usually the way we as humans use the apps. They absolutely need to have protocols and things in place to be able to make sure that you're able to report, to make sure that they are handling things appropriately, that if younger children get on, that there are things that are put in place to make sure that there are protections. But the reality is that any app, any social media product can be manipulated and can be used to be hurtful. We are now receiving calls from different families because children are learning online. With them learning online now, we are seeing that in chat rooms on their Google accounts that they had in school, and these are the Google accounts that they're learning, that they are creating separate chat rooms and they're doing text message groups within these apps that they're supposed to be learning. Well, within these apps, now we're seeing that people are saying rude things, or things are being hurtful, or they're being left out. And those are situations within that are happening. If you look at your child's online homework that's happening now, double check and see what's going on. Talk to them about, is there a separate chat? Is there a separate text group? Now, the groups that I was talking to did contact the school, and the school said that they did not have a lot of control over that, and that would have been the parents' responsibility. Um, I really think that if a school is going to provide that, the school needs to make sure and lock down certain features that the children are going to be using if that starts to be a problem. But certainly that's going to be a school by school basis situation that they're working on. Does not mean the whole platform needs to be shut down. It just means that sometimes there are things that need to be put in place to be able to make sure we protect them. Many of the places that our kids are being cyberbullied are going to be on social media, but a lot of it also is in text message groups. These don't have to be things such as directly commenting or saying horrible things to them. It can be that they're just not included in that group as much as maybe other kids are. Or all of a sudden, kids leave the group and they're now text messaging separate on the side, which then makes them feel left out. It doesn't necessarily mean that your child did anything wrong or there was any conflict that was happening, but sometimes when these things happen, kids will sit back and think, well, what did I do wrong? And why don't they want to talk to me, or why aren't they responding? And a lot of times these are really important things to talk to kids about. We always want to talk to them ahead of time, but right now, if you're in the midst of this, with all of us kind of going through the coronavirus and trying to navigate this new world that we're living in, now is also a time to be able to start talking about what social media apps your kids are using and the text message groups, and are they on instant messaging, even the emailing and the groups within their online school portals, how they're learning. Those are important, but try to do it in a way that's not as an investigator, or or in a way that may be um, seen as a negative or mean. I always try to talk to parents about the fact of stepping back and being curious. Kids always like to try to teach us because they sometimes don't think that we are as smart as they are. So it's playing that thing of, hey, I heard, about this feature. Do you guys have that feature? Or how does that work? And, what would you do, if you were left out? How do you handle that? And those are sometimes some things that you can talk to them about in those ways versus tell me where it's at. What are you doing? How do you get it? If there's a problem, I'm cutting you off, because many times kids will pull back and they will act like everything is just fine and not come talk to us as parents. What can you do if your child is being cyberbullied? Our instant response as an individual, especially as parents, is we want to retaliate as far as responding. We want to respond and say, don't talk to my kid like that, or we want to call their parents. We want to respond to their parents online. The reality is that responding or retaliating in any way typically makes it escalate. And many times as parents, they're going to support their child and say, well, your child said this or that child said this. So many times what we've always suggested and the best practices are to not respond or retaliate. You can block the person, absolutely. But we always say before you do any of that, take a screenshot. Take a screenshot, save the messages, report it to the internet service provider. Then you can do the blocking the person, the signing off of the computer. But I also think it's so important for kids to be able to talk to a friend or a trusted adult. What kids need to understand is that, especially depending on their age, if they're younger, that because this happened does not mean that it is they are in trouble. What is really trying to happen is you're trying to allow them to still utilize this app or this social media site, but making sure that they don't have to take in this negativity. And that to make sure that when these things do happen, listen, we do have tools. We have ways and things that we can do to make sure that you can still enjoy talking to friends, but that you don't have to tolerate this type of stuff. Once you've taken those screenshots, saved the messages, what you'll want to do is be able to just keep those, because if they start, because what sometimes will happen is they will find out, create another fake account, they will add on, and they'll sometimes seep through to your child's account through other kids or other people. And or what we've also seen is where your child may have blocked that person, but now their friends are taking screenshots of what the kid is saying still about your child, and they will then forward those all to your child and say, did you see so and so is saying this? Do you see what they're doing? And to talk to your child ahead of time about this fact that will happen also, and saying, listen, talk to your friends and say, listen, I don't want to hear what they're saying about me. I've blocked them because I'm not going to deal with the drama. I'm not dealing with this. So if it happens, do not talk to them. Do not respond. Leave them alone. I just want to hang out with you guys, and this is how I want to handle it. If it's seeping through and they're blocked or they're sending messages to your child, take screenshots of that stuff again, that information again, to be able to kind of show that it's starting to be repeated, and make sure that, again, you're try to talk to your child about how best to respond to their friend if it's causing them some stress. One thing I want to make sure that we talk about is the name calling is one thing and it's hurtful. But if there is somebody who is threatening harm to themselves, to your child, your family, to a building, wherever it may be, and that is happening, that they're threatening to come place harm, I would absolutely take a screenshot of it, and then you call the police department and let them know, because in our world, we don't know when things are going to be an emergency or not. So when there is a threat of violence, a threat of harm, you do take the screenshot, you contact the police department, you document that you contacted the police department, who you spoke with, and what they said to do. Because if they said, listen, nothing much we can do, they said that they're going to come shoot up a gas station, and you reported it, you talked to officer so and so, and they said, well, that we're not going to worry about that much. You need to make sure that you have documentation to show that you actually did call, talk to somebody, and reported it. Because if you don't report it and a tragedy happens, what happens is things kind of funnel back to where messages and all of that were sent. So I always just say it's better to be safe than sorry in that situation. Negative effects of cyberbullying. Children can show signs of feeling depressed and sad and angry. Um, they may hurt both physically and mentally. Feelings of sick and worthlessness, and often afraid and embarrassed to go to school. We do know that cyberbullied youth do report having suicidal thoughts. What I want to make sure you understand is that it is not a direct link. So a child who is bullied or cyberbullied does not automatically have thoughts of suicide or self-harm. What typically this happens is children who are repeatedly cyberbullied, yes, they do have a higher rate of thoughts of suicide. But we want to make sure that there's typically other situations that happen around that. We know that children who do have thoughts of suicide or attempt typically have a diagnosed or undiagnosed mental illness along with these things that are happening. So it's not just a direct link. We also know that children research reveals that link between cyberbullying and low self-esteem, family problems, academic difficulties, school violence, and other delinquent behaviors. When children are trying to express themselves, and this is how their world is now, and they feel that they are being excluded, made fun of, left out, it feels that way for them for all walks of life. So you will start seeing some of these things happening. You will start seeing them not wanting to go to school because they're worried about what's being said. You know, one of the things I used to always say to Megan is, Meg, don't worry about what these other kids say about you. Listen, you know who you are. You've got a loving family. You've got friends. Don't worry about what other kids say about you. The reality is kids do worry. They do want to be included and they do want to fit in, but sometimes it's so hard for them. Another piece to this for our social media part is it's a part that is not considered cyberbullying, but it's what we're seeing quite often, and that's emotions and the social media. So if you think about right now in our world, everything is online, right? We're having less interaction with people in our offices and in our family. And so a lot of things are now being done virtually. And when you're online, you're looking, and it looks as if many times everybody in the world has their stuff together, right? There's organizations that already have things ready for COVID. They're putting out webinars. They're doing all kinds of things. It looks like they've got their stuff together. We see things on social media about people's families, and they're doing all of this bonding virtually now. They're doing all of these wonderful things, drive-by birthday parties to be able to show all of their love. And maybe we don't have that. Maybe they have all these other supports. And so what happens is that when you're online and you're scrolling through, whether it's work or it's personal, it sometimes can feel like we're not keeping up. And everybody else has their stuff together much more so than we do. And if you think about that just for us as adults, how hard that can be sometimes, for children, it is tenfold. Because for them, this is how they communicate. And I know it's hard for some of us that may be older and not understanding as much, but this is what we have to start understanding. They live through technology. When they say, oh yeah, I talked to so and so yesterday, most of the time they're not physically talking to that person. It's texting. It's through social media. And that's how they communicate. So what we're finding from children is that when they are scrolling through and they are not included in a group text. They are not included in an outing that they, when they used to be able to go out and hang out or do things. When they see their friend who used to be their best friend is now talking and hanging out with somebody else, or a boyfriend or girlfriend that is posting pictures of their new loved ones. What happens is they hold this stuff in because they don't know how to be able to express how they feel. They sometimes may get angry, they may get hurt, they may be upset, but a lot of times they scroll through and all of these things just start pounding into them. And what a survey that we have done with children for the past 12 years, it's a survey to ask them all kinds of different things, but one of the things is what do you wish adults knew? For several years it was just that cyberbullying hurts, that bullying hurts, that adults don't understand what we're going through. And those things still do happen. But what we overwhelmingly have seen in the past 3 years is children saying the anxiety, the stress, the pressure, feeling like I'm not enough, feeling like my parents aren't happy with what I'm doing, feeling like I'm not keeping up in school, feeling like I'm not fitting in. They talk about actual words of anxiety and stress and depression and mental illness. And this has been a huge revelation for us to realize that we talk about cyberbullying so much, but we really have to talk about this piece of what it's doing emotionally to children and with the social media. And so, again, it's not this scary thing of pulling it all away. It's really talking to them about it. How does it feel when, talk to them about, listen, as an adult, as a parent, sometimes I do get stressed out. I see so and so just got a promotion at their job, and I'm still struggling. That sometimes it's hard. Do you ever struggle with that with friends, seeing that they are doing A, B, C, or D? And sometimes when we talk to them in that way, they will open up more. But what we have to make sure that when we do listen to them, that we don't shut them down with, oh, come on, who cares about so and so? It doesn't matter. You're better than them, or you're this, or you're that. What they want to know is that you actually listen without placing judgment and just saying, wow, yeah, you know what? You're right. I hear that's upsetting, or that can be embarrassing, or that can make you, feel like, why didn't they talk to you, or whatever their emotion is. And I hear that that can be hard. Those are things that they want to know, that we actually listen to them, validate their emotions of how they feel. Those things are huge with children. Some myths that we need to talk about are, one is myths that media can turn kids into cyberbullying. There's many reasons kids may be a cyberbully. Social media is just really an easier way to be able to do it, especially if they do it anonymously. Teaching kids not to talk to strangers is the best way to keep them safe online. Absolutely not. Children do not think that they do not think past what they're doing right now at the moment. So what we have to do is talk to them age appropriateness about real stories. If you have a child middle school to high school and you go home, talk to them and say, hey, listen, have you heard about Megan Meier's story? I have never heard of this. This is why I sometimes get concerned with social media. And as a parent, this is why it can concern me. Talk to kids about recognizing what people may say online, that sometimes that people are not always what they seem. Parental controls are the best way to monitor your kids' activities. Certainly, keeping kids safe online is really going to be important. Yes, you want to make sure that you look at the parental controls on apps, on your computers, on their cell phones. Absolutely doing that, but that's not going to be the 100% thing, because believe me, when I had Megan's MySpace account, I kept her profile private. I had her password. She did not even have her password. Computers were in open spaces. I had a program that monitored every instant message and every web page Megan went on. With all of those things that I had in place even back then, it still, unfortunately, an adult pretended to be a boy, and my daughter took her own life from that. So, what I want you to understand is yes, putting those in place, but discussing, talking to kids, setting up rules and consequences for what you expect and what is going to happen, making sure that they have, if it's time limits or however that's going to be, setting up. And what we always suggest is you and the kid, your child, write it down. Put it on the refrigerator so that everybody has a copy of it so that you make sure that it's right out there in front so that they can't say, no, you didn't tell me this. No, you didn't tell me I couldn't do this or couldn't do that. Social media alienates kids. Honestly, it's social media many times can strengthen relationships, and I know it doesn't make much sense because it feels like they go on mute when they get on their phone. What research does show is that they do feel connected when they have online relationships. Sometimes, even if it's a kid at a different school or in a different state, however that may be, what they are showing is these signs do show that they do strengthen the relationships. We do know that with kids being inbound, that there are going to be more concerns about cyberbullying with all of that and the isolation. I think one of the researcher was talking about how it is important to still make sure that children are connected, making sure that they do still have those online relationships, letting them Zoom, letting them Skype, letting them, however it is, Facebook Messenger, Kid Messenger, whatever that may be that you have set up and you approve, making sure that they do, because that connection is going to be so important and so vital for them. We just want to make sure that we talk to them ahead of time if there are some concerns, what to look for and what to do. And the last thing is it dangerous to post pictures of your kids online? These are things that you have to have discuss in your own household. But if you use privacy settings, if you limit your audience, you can certainly post pictures of your child. The thing that you want to understand is that if you're posting every single aspect of your child's life online, and they are in elementary and middle school and in high school, that if the parents or a friend or somebody sees that, they can take screenshots of it. And if it's a situation they're in the hospital or they're not feeling good or whatever it is that parents post, that you don't want that to be used against your child. So I always suggest posting the things that are really important to you, making sure that your child is okay if you post it on your page. Say, hey, listen, I'm going to post this. Do you mind? That way, making sure that there's not any of the backlash if they get upset if something gets out. Lawrence Steinberg states that peer relations for kids is not a sideshow, that it is the main show, and that brain scan studies, in fact, suggest that our brains react to peer exclusion much as they respond to threats to physical health or food supply. So at a neural level, they perceive this social rejection as a threat to their existence. It's why they panic when they are not included in something. It's why they automatically react if they didn't make the team, or they weren't, their friends and now they're not friends, their boyfriend or girlfriend broke up. They feel as it's the end of the world. But what happens is that it is their brains. Their brains are not developed until their mid-20s. So they don't have the ability to be able to kind of sit back, take a deep breath, and then really look at the situation and realize that this is going to be over in a couple of days, or this is going to be over in 6 months. They automatically react, and that's why many times they are struggling with these things. What are things that we can do as parents? So right now, a situation, you get done working tonight and a situation happens and your child is upset. Your child is distraught because they weren't included in a Zoom or somebody was being rude, whatever it may be. Make sure that your child feels safe to talk about what's happening. You want to demonstrate to them through words, through actions, that they can get the same result, that, you know what, we're going to work together to make this stop. I don't have all of the answers, but guess what? I'm going to do what I can do to help this so that we can get it to stop. You want to work together with your child to arrive at a course of action. As parents, I have been there, believe me. When somebody hurts your child, you automatically jump into this mode of, listen, I am going to destroy the person that's hurting my kid so bad. We sometimes don't stop and think before we act. You want to take a deep breath. You want to sit down with that child and say, okay, listen, I am upset and I am hurt for you too, but let's work. What are some things that we can do together? What can I do? Because if you automatically jump online and start posting about this kid, or you contact the parent, your child may get into hysterics, because sometimes what it can do, and many times, is it can make the situation even bigger. So talk to that child, but take a deep breath first. Don't be dismissive to their perspective. You want to validate their feelings and their voice. Here's the thing, listening and validation takes time and practice. Listening means actively listening to your kid. So not on a call, not cooking dinner, not playing with the dog. It is sitting down and looking at your child and listening, not interjecting. What we're going to be listening for is just their feelings, not what they've done, not if it makes any sense. Their feelings is all it is. And then we're going to validate their feelings of, I hear that you're upset, and I hear that you're embarrassed, or I hear that you're angry. What can I do to help? When you do those things, it seems like we're not doing anything to fix the problem, but we can't fix these all the time. You just listening, validating how they feel, and saying, what can I do to help, will get them to be able to calm their brain down, to take a deep breath, know that you've listened to them, you've heard them, and then they know that they can come back to you if things start escalating. So those are things that are really important. You can certainly contact and report your concerns to the internet service provider. If it's happening and it's between schools and all of that right now, certainly with the teacher, if it's happening on their online courses, absolutely take screenshots, absolutely talk to the schools about it. And then you certainly want to be able to talk to a police department if they are threatening, if there is a threat that is happening. So I think I have done enough talking at this point. I'm hoping that was informational, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jeanne Gray so that she can talk more about ways that HR leaders can support employees and their families.
Thanks so much, Tina. Really appreciate that. So I'll just spend a couple of minutes really talking about how we can translate all the things we just learned from Tina into things we can practice at work and continue on in the workplace as it changes. So Tina, would you mind going to the next slide? Great, thank you. So in today's world, EAPs aren't enough. So I can't tell you how wonderful EAPs have been for me personally, and also for employees in companies I've had the privilege of working at. However, those alone just aren't enough. If you think about traditional EAP programs, there are usually time-based limits. It's usually good for like an initial consulting type of thing. And it's usually for just the employee and not their families. And so, really, how do you think about supporting not only the employee, but their whole ecosystem? And so I know for us here at Aura, we've given a lot of thought into how we can think about supporting the families of our Aura All-Stars. And so one of the ways we've been doing that is really thinking about mental health. And so for me, how I think about mental health is it's really overall wellness. So we talk a lot about physical wellness when we think about designing our medical, dental, vision types of programs. We talk a lot about financial wellness and offering, opportunities for 401k and other financial planning. And also at Aura, we do offer cyber wellness protection, through our Identity Guard product, as well as emotional wellness, just giving folks time, for instance. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what we're doing, and certainly know we don't have all the answers, but just in the spirit of sharing, wanted to share some examples with you all. So as we think about mental health, and again supporting the whole ecosystem of our employees' families, we think about it in two ways. One is sort of ongoing foundational offerings, and the other is more life event based. And so from an ongoing perspective, especially right now, it's such an uncertain time in all of our lives, we continue to remind employees about the behavioral health telemedicine that we have through our medical carrier, and really encourage folks to be able to access that. So I think when, especially right now, we're hearing a lot around telemedicine as it relates to physical health, but I also can't say enough about the behavioral health element of that and access to wonderful providers through that. The second ongoing thing is EAP. So although I mentioned alone it is not enough, it is still a crucial part of our ongoing offerings. The third is unlimited PTO. I think a lot of employers, especially over the last 10 years or so, have shifted to unlimited PTO or have thought about it at least. And rolling that program out alone isn't enough. It really is important that you're encouraging employees to take that time. Otherwise, it can seem as though a way for employers to really say you have unlimited, but really not allow you to take it. And so I think tying that together with mental health, what we try to do is really encourage people, use your unlimited PTO, even if it just means taking a day for yourself, and really kind of normalizing and making mental health days okay. And then the last thing I just wanted to share was, again, the Identity Guard ID protection. We offer it, of course, to our employees and also their dependents. And we've had a lot of folks that have really raved about the cyberbullying protection that we have in that product. Tina, would you mind going to the next slide, please? Great. And so one of the big ways, at least when I talk to other friends and colleagues that are leading, HR and people operations, there's really this massive pivot away from thinking about the one-time open enrollment period and really thinking more about how do you continue to offer value props from a benefit standpoint and a support standpoint throughout the year. So we have given a lot of thought to our own life events and what we can be doing. So as it relates to mental health, we offer additional support to our employees during really specific times in their lives, like bereavement, divorce, et cetera. How do you support your employees through that? I think is crucial. The second thing is just getting creative, and I wanted to offer a few ideas during the pandemic that we're in. One of the things that we've recently done at Aura is we've offered Calm app licenses for all of our employees, and that also benefits their families because it really is just one sign-on and you can access any of the offerings that Calm has. So we've heard rave reviews from folks who are saying, this is one of the most stressful times in my life. I'm trying to balance being a parent, doing the distance learning with my kids, all the while taking my normal meetings and so forth. And Calm really, helps me meditate or helps me fall asleep and that type of thing. So it was a great decision to offer that. The second thing we've done is, when it comes to mental health, sometimes nothing is as good as a good laugh. And so we recently had a celebrity guest join Aura's town hall. For those of you who are Sex and the City fans, it's Mr. Big or Chris Noth. He also spent several years on Law and Order as well. So he joined our town hall and was so gracious. And it was really a nice distraction and a good sort of pick-me-up for folks. The third is sometimes you just have to look within yourselves. And so what we've done is really try to leverage the power of collaboration tools. We use Zoom, and a lot of companies are doing happy hours and coffee breaks and things like that. And we decided to spruce up that concept with having our own wonderful musicians who are Aura employees turn the coffee break into sort of a virtual coffee shop with musical talent. So countless studies show the power of music therapy and mental health, and we have found that to be true for us. And lastly, I would say is, especially as it relates to what Tina has talked about with us today, this the concept of really the lines being blurred between work and life right now. It's not only how can you help folks get through it, but how can you actually maximize that and turn it into something great. So we've heard a lot from employees about how they've never felt so connected to each other because, you know, we're on video conferences and you get to see their dog or the house they live in or their family members walking in. And so what we thought was, gosh, how do we support these parents who are juggling a bunch of things? So we've created an Aura Kids program. We have a Slack channel devoted to this, and we're in the process of setting up a magician to do a virtual magic show. We're hiring a tutor to help parents as they think about homeschooling and distance learning. And it's amazing actually how affordable those things are, especially right now when a lot of these folks are even looking for work and additional ways to make money. So we've just been really happy with the programming there. So just a few ideas on how to support families at this time. Next slide, Tina. Thanks. Great. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Scott Hudson, who will close out the webinar.
Hey, hi everyone. We had a little bit of a technical snafu. Randy put me in the special muted queue there, so we got me out. She wanted to make sure I didn't talk too much. So I appreciate the time. First, let me thank Tina and Jeanne. I think that was very, very informative and very enlightening. You know, this is something that we all deal with. I have grown children, and one of my son the other day was at 26 was not part of a group chat and was offended by it. And so this is something that we all need to take serious. It's specific to our company, Aura and Identity Guard. We do have a unique feature that's built into our platform. We're leveraging IBM Watson, and IBM Watson is able to help parents better monitor their children's activity on social media. And specific to that, via Watson, what it's looking for is not just a word or just not a phrase. It's looking for a combination of words, phrases, hashtags, emojis. And what it's able to do is it's actually able to collect that information, leverage artificial intelligence, and put meaning to it, and actually alert you as a parent. So we strongly suggest if this is something that is important to you, that you look at some type of service that gives you insight into your children's social media activity. And we believe that that what we've brought to the table is very powerful. So we really appreciate you taking the time. If you're interested in learning more about this, feel free to reach out. Reminder that if you're interested in making a donation to the foundation, please reach out to their website. And once again, I really want to thank Tina and Jeanne. I hope you found this informative. Looks like we're running a little later than we expected, so I don't want to hold up time. I did see a couple of questions, and so we'll address those in our follow-up. But really do appreciate you taking the time, and everyone, please be safe and be as productive as you can in this environment. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.